Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Good, Frank. Good to see you.
Same here, man. How was your week?
It was awesome. It was a great week.
All right.
I went and took my mom to the Vincent van Gogh immersive exhibit.
Nice. Yeah, because you're immersed in it, right?
Yep. Oh, man. Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the new way people are going to go and experience art.
Yeah, it's like you're inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and do the exhibit thing. It was too cool. Floor to ceiling, all the walls. But the cool part is from every different area you walk around, you're witnessing the paintings in a different way.
Yeah, different
because
perspective.
Yeah, exactly. It's got the music to it.
Me and Mike put that show together, by the way, the Van Gogh show.
Yeah, we helped
perspective
organize
shift now.
a shift of perspective.
It was two-dimensional to me and Mike got involved.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a good time.
Yeah, I'm heading there on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you and Carol have an awesome time.
Yeah, I like Vinny. He's a good guy.
No, truly.
Yeah.
It was awesome. On that same note, though, one thing that was kind of funny when I was there, so I was watching myself at the end. I went through, it was just my mom and I.
mirrors or something?
Well, no. Sorry, I thought you were serious. So
Am I ever serious, Mike?
Right. I get to at the end, there's like a gift shop type of thing. And you can walk through, they've got all sorts of different really cool stuff. You guys got to check it out. But like as I'm going through, I'm observing and witnessing myself, and interacting.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
Like most people do selfies, but Mike witnesses himself.
I try. That's the goal behind this. Yeah. So I'm experiencing myself, in the relationship, watching myself interacting with my mom, and going through this, and we're looking at the gift shop, and these different little items we start to pick up and stuff, and at the end, we got she got a journal, this Vincent van Gogh journal, this like bucket hat. I got a pair of socks.
A bucket hat? What's a bucket hat?
So a bucket hat's like one of those hats with like the brim that goes all the way around.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they have all this different type of merch based on his paintings, and it's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I just was like laughing to myself on the inside, watching myself create such attachment to these like type of items. Like I paid like $25-$30 for this pair of socks, right? 100% cotton, like totally made in China, like just with a print on them of the Starry Night or something.
The Starry Night print?
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
So classic. And so I'm like looking at it, and I watched myself as I got home, after the exhibit and stuff, and I went to go put this stuff away, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna, wait to wear these socks. And I witnessed this attachment that I put on these like items, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait, and this pair of socks is special. And it's so funny to witness these attachments that we put on like the littlest of things. So and we create this story and narrative, like, oh, this was an experience I went to with my mother. It was a great day. Like I remember exactly where I was when I bought those socks. But my pair of, polo socks, much nicer quality made, less expensive,
But it doesn't have Starry Night on it.
You see what I'm saying, though? Like, I don't remember where I was when I bought those socks that I wear.
That'd be kind of weird if you do.
But you get what I'm saying. We create these
narrative
attachments and these stories behind everything that we do. And so when you can bring yourself to witness the attachment and to see it, that's a great moment, because
it's not that we don't do it, just be aware that we're actually doing it.
Oh, absolutely. To not do it,
it's just absurd.
That's ridiculous. And so when you bring yourself aware of it, like the Buddha talked about, the root of all suffering is attachment, and that is so absolutely true. The reason we get caught up in mind is because of the stories that we assign to everything. So when you look at this pair of socks that are, a cheap pair of Chinese-made socks, that come in bulk, that probably cost $1 to produce. But even the idea of them being
cheap and from China is a concept as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But the whole thing is
We're not
mind.
dissing China, by the way.
Oh, no. I'm not worried about it.
Oh, you're funny, man.
It's funny how it is.
Yeah.
And so, like, with that said, I look at the socks, I look at, the connection I created and the mind that the story made about this experience. and I have to let go of that. And the real thing was the experience of my soul, my mom's soul, that genuine oneness, experiencing something that we have never done together. That moment was special, and I need to leave it at that. Anything else is something that I'd be carrying with me or narrating.
Yeah.
And so, as you go through these experiences in life, allow yourself to witness what is going on and observe kind of the thoughts, the sensations, the emotions that are going into things, because it teaches you a lot about yourself. And that's how I'm, experiencing and going through life. A good friend of mine, I'll leave names out, but I was talking with her recently. And
we don't like to name names.
Well, it's a personal type of thing. So she was talking to me, and she recently had somebody pass, okay? A death in the family. And when we were talking about this, attachment, that we create, with family members, parents, siblings, children, these are attachments. And in reality, we're all spirits going on our own different journeys. We've lived 1,000 lives before this. Who knows how many we'll live after. Yeah. So on that same note, we were talking about the attachment, and she said something so profound to me. She was like, Mike, it was funny. I was thinking about this. The universe knows no difference between me losing my car keys and me losing a family member. And I thought that was so profound, the way she described this. Yeah, and so natural and genuine.
On how, for some people, that's majorly depressing. And for some people, it's majorly liberating. It's how you look at it.
That's what we're ultimately getting at. And this might be deep, and I'm starting the show off on a very deep level, but this is the attachment that we're talking about. Because she said to me, she goes, Mike, some people might be more upset about losing the car keys because they spent their whole life working for that car. They lived their life by that car.
Oh, I
their
get
whole
pissed
identity.
Off when I lose my car keys.
You see what I'm saying?
You have this big hunk of metal you can't do anything with.
They identify so much with the car that might be worse than losing a family member. Yeah, and that's a very true perspective for I'm sure a lot of people. And it's weird how our mind puts different weights on things. Yeah. And some of us at home may be saying, oh my goodness, what do you mean? Losing a family member? You're comparing this to keys? See what that is. That inside, that's a story that we're holding on to. We're holding on to an attachment. And this is what the Buddha was getting at when he said the root of all suffering is attachment. Mm-hmm. This is what we're getting at. And so when we can look at this from a universal perspective, like my friend, how she said this so beautifully, it was profound. And I was like, that is such a great way to look at this and to describe what's going on.
Now, and there's also other ways of looking at it. I want to bring into the word suffering or the word resistance, however you want to look at it. And suffering or resistance actually can expand us. So I've talked about this before, and I like to emphasize on it because I go through this a lot too. So it's like if you're not feeling good, say you have a symptom of something, you're not feeling good, it very well can be, depending on the output and how you think about it, you could be coming down with something or your body's failing you, or it's expanding. And the reason I use this or that instead of this and that, it's because you're choosing the perspective in which you want. Because the truth is, it is always expanding. We just label it as disease or what have you. So whenever we're in a place of dis-ease, it actually, when we let go, it actually brings us into a state of very ease. It's kind of like putting a donut on a baseball bat, swinging it a couple of times, you're in the batter's box, taking it off. You go from a very dis-ease, heavier bat than you wanted, to one that's lighter because the momentum of flying. So a lot of these things of attachment teaches us to let go, but we wouldn't know to let go unless we learn to attach as well. It's the yin and the yang. Then it comes into this and that, not this or that. If you look at it this or that, you're getting banged around, you're going to hate this world. You're going to treacherous. You're going to try to avoid. Stick your head in the sand when it gets too overwhelming. Pull your head out of the sand, look around. Okay, everything's clear. When you see the tiger again, you stick your head back in the sand. It's a very difficult way to get through this planet. So a lot of people grow old and decrepit at what we consider young ages. And biologists say, hey, we could live well to 200. And they, if we get to 150, they could push it to 250, whatever the age are, Again, I'm not here to tell you this is how we ought to live, but when you're actually living in the world of this and that, peace and suffering expands us into the next realm as we keep going. So just like, if I go to the gym and lift weights, I grab onto the weight, I hold it, lift it, and then I let go of it. That's what creates the expansion, as we know, is muscle mass. Or if I'm doing cardio, same thing. I just run at a resistance, get my heart rate up, then lower it down, get it up. All this, what we call discomfort. But when you're aware of it, understanding and tell yourself the story that this is part of expansion, you don't suffer from it. The suffering is not understanding this is what it is. You ought to hold on to something. You have a loved one, hold on. And then when they pass, you mourn them. That's part of the expansion. There is no avoiding it. But what gets us through it is what Mike was saying earlier. It's just attachment. That's all it is. So when I let go of something, it means I can grab onto something else. You're never going to replace that human being or the quality of the human being in a persona.
Can't.
You don't, and you ought not to. Just like I never replace my car. I just get a new car. Because everyone still talks about their first car or the car they may have gotten into an accident on or whatever. You don't replace it. I mean, you don't replace it. You actually just get a new car. It's completely different. You don't try to replace the person that.
We can't replace any attachment.
No. Speaking of.
You can't replace your first kiss.
Yeah, but think about that. I was just talking to Mike about this because of Van Gogh. So Vincent Van Gogh, when his mother gave him that name, but he was a replacement child because he actually had a brother called Vincent Van Gogh that died as a young child, right? Almost, pretty close to birth. And so he became well aware that he was the second Vincent Van Gogh. He was the replacement child. Now, due to that, his mother never really warmed up to him, and he knew it instinctively. We all do. And then not only that, not to laugh, but to be reminded almost on a daily basis, the cemetery where his brother was buried was in walking distance from their house. And he would go there and see a tombstone that actually said Vincent Van Gogh.
Talk about like never being able to live up to a certain standard.
Yeah, and so the mom tried to replace him, the original Vincent Van Gogh, and but out of that suffering, Vincent Van Gogh is the one we know and the one that picture's hanging over our shoulders right here. That major suffering, and then when he let go, one was letting go. For him, it was when he died, shortly after he got shot in the stomach. Then the world was introduced to his art. It's interesting, right? It's like, wow. We don't know. There's a perpetuating energy field, and why do we expand? Why is the universe constantly expanding? I don't know. But I know the principles allow me to move within the expansion in the path of least resistance. But just like everything, I hold on to the monkey bar just long enough to swing to the next one to grab it. I don't touch it and let go. But as I go and move quicker through it, I almost becomes very graceful. It's a graceful thing.
As you work with this more too, the idea of not knowing is not something that is uncomfortable anymore.
It's glorious.
It's more than glorious. You see that the mind, anything you try to create is the work of the mind. It's the work of the story, the work of the narrative.
Yeah, define the understanding of miracle. It's the unknown happening in a way, because what creates a miracle is the moment in time where you're in excitement, and your excitement moving into the unknown creates what we call the miracle. A miracle is an unexplained event that no one ever thought can happen. But once that miracle happens, and then it starts to what we call duplicate itself, other people start doing it, it's no longer a miracle, right? Heart surgery compared to 100 years ago is a freaking miracle. But
most stuff we do today is a miracle.
Yeah, right.
Air conditioning.
The fact that I could even read is a miracle.
The fact that you and I can sit together and broadcast to the entire world now is a miracle.
So as Einstein said, either everything's a miracle and nothing's a miracle. And it's how we perceive it. So you can do it either way. Either way is okay.
And you'll experience either way in a very different realm. You
Yeah,
know,
you will.
That's what
Yeah.
heaven and hell is.
Yeah.
Heaven means harmony, you know, to be in harmony,
Yeah.
you know, and understand, to flow with what's going on, to experience in this life in the kingdom of heaven. Hell is an experience of constant dead ends, uncomfortable, situation.
Yeah, but it's dead ends that you think ought not to be there, where heaven's a bunch of dead ends that you actually enjoy.
Because you
It's
understand.
a bunch of hurdles that you now. It's like, well, a hurdlist likes to jump hurdles. That's the purpose of it. Like, what is this thing doing here? Get this out of the way. But when you actually understand it, you actually enjoy the hurdle. You enjoy the obstacle course, rather than realizing why is all this stuff in the road? Why can't I just have a straight path? I'm like, well, you didn't come here for that. You can't expand on a straight path, so to speak. But when we read expansion, we either read it as illness or expansion. But if you read it just as expansion, yes, you're going to feel tired. You're going to be tired, push through it, or simply lay on the couch, whatever you need to do. But don't tell yourself there's something wrong here, because we don't know enough to know there's anything wrong. And what happens is, like, I used to tell myself this. It was a game I played before I even fully understood these principles. I'd wake up, or I wasn't feeling good, right? And then I'm like, okay, am I sick or is it allergies? Well, the only way I knew that was to go to the gym. And what I mean is, whenever I worked out, I told myself it was allergies. All of a sudden, me working out, getting all the allergens out of my system by getting my heart rate up and stuff, whatever. So I'll start to feel better. But if it was a cold, I would feel worse. I never had a cold. So, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what I told myself. This is the litmus test. If I go to the gym and I peter out, I must be sick. But if I go to the gym and I start feeling better, it must have been allergies. So to me, my mental thought onto allergies, it's something you just push through. Where a cold is something, well, it's got you by the, right? But yet to the symptoms,
Gotta sleep this one off.
the symptoms, if Karen wanted to go soon, like, I got a cold. How do you know? I went to the
mind
gym.
works like that?
Yeah.
How strong the mind is?
Oh, the mind is powerful.
Well, that's
suggestive.
Well, like that right there is such a great way to explain it, because if anything, like, guys, look at like the placebo effect. Like 1/3 of all medication, like this is factual statement. 1/3 of all of our medicine today falls under the placebo effect category. People think, oh, they're taking, whatever, pill is the effect, is producing the effect. But it's very much so within the mind.
Yeah, but it is, because even like when you look at placebo, they willingly know they place out a sugar pill out there opposed to another pill that had a different frequency than sugar. So these are all frequency vibrations coming in. So, but when I take that sugar pill thinking it's this pill, what I do is I create the frequency, I create the pharmacy in what we call in our body, and that matches it, even though it was a sugar pill. It was all done through belief. And so placebo, so if you look at everything actually is a permission slip. So I'm not saying not to do it, but realize the true causation goes way beyond the scope of humans' ability to explain. But there is a correlation with me taking something, such as an aspirin, saying I have a headache, and then taking the aspirin and the headache going away. There's a correlation. And the correlation is I believe that aspirin, because I've been told and suggested that would go away. Now, if I could say, okay, I have a headache, and instead of taking an aspirin, I could stick my head in a bucket of ice water and the headache go away. Again, was it the ice water? Or the ice water just completely distract me from thinking about the headache? And I used the bucket of water or the tub of water, wherever you stuck your head in, as a permission slip to allow the headache to go away. Either one are valid, either one work, but the true causation goes way beyond the aspirin, goes way beyond the bucket of water, to a point that we don't know. So there are correlations in these principles. I'm not saying don't take it, but that's not the true causation. And what happens is, as scientists study this more, you said 1/3?
1/3 of our medicine today.
Well, but
that's a lot.
Hold on a second.
That's a lot.
Eventually, it's going to be
100%.
100%.
No, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean.
The closer they get to really truly understanding it,
everything's a fractal.
What the causation? Yeah, But right now there is a correlation. So I would never tell anyone if you believe someone today was asking me about beliefs, and they asked, "Do I believe in religion?" And I says, yeah, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And then like, "Oh, you're religious?" I'm like, "Well, I don't follow. I only have any allegiance to something." But when I say, "Do I believe in it?" I'm like, I believe it works for most people because it's a set of understandings or principles. There might be doctrines or rules to it. Kind of like, I could say, "Do you believe working out is healthy?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, absolutely." Okay, now you have different types of working out. You got like Olympic lifting, you got running. So these are all different, would be different religions, so to speak. So if I was Olympic lifting, there's a way to train. So there's a doctrine, if you will, to do Olympic lifting opposed to bodybuilding. But yet the principle in bodybuilding and the principle in Olympic lifting are the same. It's focus and expansion of whatever it is you're doing. So bodybuilder might rep out something, so they go from 6 reps up to 12 reps with something in isolation. There's an expansion there where a powerlifter will just keep adding more weight on and get the posture and everything else perfect in order to do so. But there's expansion. But what I do in Olympic lifting type of workout opposed to bodybuilding is different. So those are the different religions, but the principles and concepts are all the same.
Absolutely.
So, yes, religion works. I'm not here to talk against it or for it.
We're talking about the same thing.
Absolutely.
We're just not trying to put you in a box.
No.
Religion just wants to.
Well, no. I don't want to get into religion wants to put you in a box because religion isn't run by one person, a priest, or even the Pope. You may assign it to the Pope because think about this.
I guess
when Pope Francis came in, he completely changed the way Catholics look at if they some fought against him.
When I say box, I mean mental construct. I do because it I don't want to use the word limiting because we're talking about the same concept.
It is, but in order to have in the physical world, in order to have an experience, we have to create a limited box. Mm-hmm. Just like you wouldn't have a game of football unless you had 1,000 by 50-yard field. Mm-hmm. But now, can you imagine say, okay, the rules change. It's unlimited field. We're going to go out to Iowa and mow down the cornfields and play football. Like, whoa, how do we do that? The limitations of that rectangle box called the gridiron is where we could play infinite amounts of games. So having a limitation in a box, such as religion, there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't let it grab you by the neck and not let you leave the field, so to speak. Because every religion that we go through or everything we do at some point, because what it's leading us to, like this thing called spirituality and awakening, at some point you have to step out of the box. Just like the football player has to step off the gridiron to realize what they were doing in the first place. So it will get you there, just like the cab gets me to the restaurant, but I must exit the cab. If I don't exit the cab, I become a clergyman, and I never get to experience why it is I chose this religion. Just like the mantra we do. We do a mantra. We do transcendental meditation, me and Mike. And the mantra is there to get me below the surface of the physical realm of thinking. And as I sink deeper and deeper into the stillness and the quiet, all of a sudden, I have to let go of the mantra or else I'm stuck in the mantra. And then when thoughts come in, I go back to the mantra because I don't want those thoughts to pull me back to the surface of this physical plane in which we created here. It's a game. I want to step out of the game for a moment. This is why we do our meditation. But the mantra, even at some point, I need to let go of it. And that's the brilliance of it. But I don't have a problem grabbing onto it either. Letting go isn't the ultimate place. Every aspect of it, the noise at the surface of the physical world, then sinking below that, and then utilizing the mantra, the focus, so thought can pass me by, and then getting to the point where I'm murmuring the mantra, and then I'm no longer saying the mantra. It all is experienced beautifully to me. There isn't a part of that's better or worse. It's all part and parcel of it. We can't separate it. But yet, there are moments, just like me and Mike, our perspective shift now. We're individually, he's over there, I'm over here, but we can't separate it or else the show doesn't work. What is the best part of it? I don't know. It's absurd to try to find the best part. It's all one big expansion and continuum in the world in which we live in throughout the universe. So stop trying to focus on where was the best part. Just enjoy the whole shugaboogle.
The whole shebang.
Shebang and shaboogle. Shaboogle.
The whole
kiddaboodle
or caboodle?
Yeah, caboodle. That's Neil. Neil Caboodle. No. Yeah. Shebang, whatever it is. You know.
Yeah.
The sling. I used to make shit up all the time.
No, I know what you mean, though. Like, we take this whole thing very seriously.
Yeah.
And when you see through the veil, you realize, oh, man, I've been running around with myself the whole time. And when I say myself, I mean mind. I mean,
you still,
you got this screen, and we're imprinting this screen. We're not only the actor, we're the director, we're the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
We're experiencing this whole thing right now, as we're going through it. There is no past, there is no future.
Other than the concepts,
these are concepts, and we don't know, what the future has in store, nor do we need to. That would just be the mind creating some narrative and story that we carry around. Same goes for the past. When people talk about their past, and scientists have done studies on this, what they actually remember, only about half of it is true. 50% of what we consider our memories that we swear by or that we love or reminisce over, 50% of that is false. It's false. It's actually not true or how the events actually happen. And to find this in a study, it's so funny because a lot of us base our lives on our past. So we're basing our lives on information that is half false. Yeah. And that is a scary statistic going through life, saying I'm going to base half of my life or base my life on my past experiences that are only half true.
Yeah.
So allow yourself, guys, to loosen up and see that this world that we're navigating, it's much more than this three-dimensional matter-on-matter type of world. It's not as tight as the Chinese finger trap as we think it is. Just like a Chinese finger trap, it's tighter the more we struggle, the more we stress. It's not until we let go that it loosens up. And this is what we're experiencing in calling life. But when you're navigating through this, you begin to see that there's other experiences out there. And the best way to describe the other experiences is what they would call kind of dark matter. What we don't know about in science, which I believe is 90% of what's around us.
Oh, it's more than 90%.
So we have 96%. We don't know. Scientists, we have no idea what is going on.
What we call physical matter is a lot more space around it than there's actual matter.
Exactly. And so,
because when you look at the sky, right, at night, how many stars are out there? But how much space is in between each of those stars? That's the fascinating thing.
And that we can rest in that field. That's the unmanifest.
I started counting the stars one day and I lost track after 100.
Good luck.
Yeah, I got shit. My phone rang. I'm like, God damn it.
But this vast dark matter that we don't know about, that's the infinite. That's the unmanifest. Yeah. That's these other realms. You don't put yourself in a limited mindset. You don't look at yourself as this character going through this world that's happening to you. You start to understand that, okay, what's happening right now is happening right now. It is what it is. Yeah. There's an infinite number of possibilities around it, and that's what you rest in.
Yeah, but then when you come to play the game, don't worry about the limitation.
Oh no,
because the reason it's able to go to a restaurant and order a meal because there's only 5 things on the menu. If I went and they pulled out a Bible-sized menu,
Cheesecake Factory menu,
yeah, pretty much, I would starve to death. Just give me some goddamn cheesecake. Which kind would you like? I'm like, this cheesecake,
please.
It's like, we have 32 varieties of cheesecake. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go. I'm going to the hot dog stand. That's give me a hot dog. That's all. Right? It's just that simple.
Nice and easy.
Yeah. So the limitations, you understand, we all have limitations, but that's what the experience in the three-dimensional world is. It's a world of limitations, but the infinite possibilities. So, again, we mentioned
the limitations are still mind.
Yeah, well, the limitations.
Unless you're referring to gravity.
Well,
or like, what do
I'm
you
just
mean?
saying, if in the duality world, because when you go beyond the duality world, there are other like dimensions that don't create the duality. It's just different fields. So, but we're here talking about this physical world, how to navigate through it. So people like, we're unlimited beings. I'm like, yeah, you are. But if you're trying to play football, stay limited, stay in the limitation of the football field of 50 by 100, or you're going to be a flag is going to throw every time. It's understanding that in the limitation, there's unlimited abilities to experience within. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, how many books can be written in the English language and there's only 24 letters in the language? Wow. But imagine it's like, hey, we ran out of books. We got to add a couple more letters onto this baby.
We don't have enough letters.
We don't have enough letters. So we ran out of books. Can I tell it? Yeah, but my publicist. Hey, Frank, where's that? Where's the next book? Hey, ran out of letters.
I need a few more letters.
I'm waiting for another Einstein to come along who conjures up letters. I have to go beyond Z. What's beyond Z, buddy?
That's funny.
Yeah. But it is. So you got 24 letters. You got 23 notes. 23 notes. You get 12 notes in music, 24 octaves. But yet, we'll never run out of that stuff. But yet, we like that. So it isn't bad to be limited. It's, again, just because I'm in pain doesn't mean it's bad. If I believe my limitations are bad, I experience a bad limitation. But if I actually know the limitation, just like to the tightrope, is that wire is limited in real estate. But that's what makes it amazing to walk across. Anyone could walk across a sidewalk that is, 2 foot wide, yeah. But go on a 20 gauge wire. Oh my God, that's when focus and steadfast, which you mentioned in the past, with the meek will inherit the earth. When you become meek, that's the moment in which you can walk across that wire. And this is what we came here to do. You don't start on the wire. You start on the sidewalk. Hell, you just start in the living room when you're like, a year old, just stumbling around.
Falling around.
And then, you make your way to the gate, the wire across the canyon. Now, I'm using this metaphorically. It doesn't mean we all have to get to the point where we're walking a tightrope. That's not my place in where I use my limitations to expand. I use it in other places. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. So limitations can be looked at as the ability to expand, right? Because if I was unlimited and I could lift, 1,000 pounds or 5,000 pounds, where would the expansion be? Right? Then it would be, okay, now I'm lifting a building. I'm like, watching a Marvel comic and you got they're fighting, they're throwing shit. I'm like, if they're throwing bills at each other, why don't they just punch each other? I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like, they're throwing a building to hurt the guy. I'm like, he's not going to get hurt. It's going to slow him down. But you just ruined the building. Now we got to clean this shit up. Come on. Let's get crazy here. Getting upset, you're ruining my neighborhood. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Our minds create the funniest stories about anything. Everything we're witnessing. See, as we're going through this right now, we're assigning a meaning to the words and this is what you become witness to. The meaning you give a situation as it unfolds, the quality you describe and experience. All of this is mind. Yeah. It's all mind.
Yeah. Now, this is a cool thing. So what Mike was heading down the road to talk about, in the limiting world, because we are limitless in a certain plane. And then in another plane, we are limited, but that's okay. But understanding we're infinite, that's the limitless place we are, is what allows us to play in this limited game brilliantly. If you don't understand you're infinite, that's when it gets scary. If this is the only game you'll ever play, you got to play to win. You're not gonna play good. You're gonna choke, or you're gonna act irresponsible within the field of the game. You're not gonna cooperate,
and you're afraid of death.
Yeah,
I remember.
What is death?
Well, that's it. There is nothing to fear about death.
Well, what is that? This, what is death to you? Like,
Oh, well.
I don't think we ever had this discussion.
But to me, I mean, personally, I was going to just use my favorite go-to Ram Dass quote.
Oh,
it's like taking off a tight shoe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know, death is that moment of disconnect from the physical world.
It's a transfer of energy.
Yeah.
It's how I look at it.
There's no stopping to what's going on.
Yeah,
the consciousness goes... isn't going anywhere.
If you think about it, we separate. Someone would say, okay, every time you go to sleep, you die to the day. Well, every breath you take, you die to the molecules of oxygen you breathe in. Every moment of every second, we're dying to a new birth of a new experience. So death is all around us. But we look at this one point in our life around 99 years old and call that death, or a fatal car accident, which they witness someone that death. The disappearance of the corporeal body as death. But it's all death, because my corporeal body that I've been bouncing around since I've been on this plane, in which we call from the years of 1967, and now we're in 2021. There was a shell of a body that I housed, but I've had multitudes of shells, just as more of those shells than I probably had cars, and I've had a lot of cars. And what I mean is, when I was born, I was an infant, 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5. All quickly those bodies gave birth to a new body. So my 5-year-old body died many, 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 many years ago. So did my 18-year-old body. But there's something that never died, that transferred into him, into this body. I could look at a picture of myself in graduation at 17 years old in high school, and I'm like, what happened to that kid? But what was in that kid is in this
conscious,
not so old adult right now.
Not so old adult right now.
Not so old adult now.
Consciousness.
Yeah.
Consciousness.
It's consciousness, and there's a spark of energy or spirit, which we call, and however you want to label it, is always and forever going to live. It's just going to transform into something else. And someone asked me today, what do you think happens when we die? And I'm like, what do you mean?
Take off your shoe.
Well, they were talking about
it's
like, do you continue on? I'm like, well, hey, what happens when you get a new phone? Like, what do you mean? You turn your old phone in, and all the information that you want to come with you goes into the new phone, along with new experience you've ever had with that phone. So your friend Jason's phone number is still in the phone. You still access it, even though it's a new phone. But then this new phone offers up a new ability, a new sequence of energy to get to new experiences that you never had before. This is what happens when we die. It sounds heartless to compare my body or life to a cell phone.
That's just how we've been trained. Yeah. That's conditioning.
But I'm using this for the understanding to try to wrap your mind around it. The only way to truly know it is by experiencing it. And people are like, well, you already experienced it. Just think about this.
Well, we've experienced it thousands of times.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, just think, so if a biologist, most biologists will agree upon that you replicate your body, a whole new body, every 7 years. All right. Now, there's parts of your body that will replicate or reproduce, I should say, not replicate, but reproduce within, so the lining of your stomach every month. So down to the brain and the bones and stuff like that could take longer. So within a period of 7 years, you have a completely new body from the cellular structure. Just like your grandparents gave birth to your parents and your parents gave birth to you. And here I stand. My grandparents are no longer here, but there's an attribute, a part of me that was passed on from them that is in me, in which we call it inheritance or genetic or generations, right? These are concepts. But the concept's built on the fractal understanding that we're always dying and birthing into a new, whether it's a new concept or a new body or into a new plane of existence. It's constant. And when we start to wrap our minds around that concept, all of a sudden, we'll learn to let go easier. And when I say quicker, I mean quicker because it's time. Most of us hold on too long to where we actually start to tear our muscle to where it takes longer to repair. Like when I'm lifting weights, I know when to let go of it. If I don't, I'll be out of the gym for a while. So you're playing, but I want to get to that point where, now it's time to let go. I don't want to do it way too early. If I could rep out something in 20 reps, I'm not going to just rep out in 10. I'm going to go to 20. And if I make it to 19, that's okay, because I didn't want my shoulder to go. And why would the shoulder go? That's my belief. So then when I go in, I have to change my belief to get to 20. What am I really changing? I'm expanding my belief structure, and my body and my world around me expands. It all is up here, and it starts in here and then here. But we're here to change and expand our beliefs, but they have to start in the limitation. Think about this. When you're born, what are you able to do? Exactly. So then we came here to expand, to do more, to eventually change our own diaper. Well, actually, if you wear a diaper, you're not changing your own diaper, right?
The cycle.
Hey, I'm going to change my diaper. Let me back. It's like, by that time,
Frank
I potty
was
trained.
very advanced as a child.
I was 1 year old
Changing
changing my own diaper. Yeah. I was advanced.
That's funny.
I'm a special kid. Yeah.
No.
Change your own goddamn diaper.
Speaking of the letting go that you said, I just recently watched some movie on Netflix. It was funny. I forgot what it was, but it had that John Cena guy, and he was talking about this scene.
Are you talking about the wrestler?
Yeah,
John Cena.
yeah,
I like
John
that
Cena.
guy.
He's in this vacation movie, and it was funny. And he was talking about he was playing a Navy SEAL, and he said, one of the trainings as a Navy SEAL, we have to get back. I think it's like, I don't know, to 14 miles away in water, and they get dropped in moving water.
My dad did that to me every summer.
Well,
He dropped me off somewhere.
those who got back, and the only true way to get back was to allow yourself to float with the river. And those who tried to swim or fight became too tired and would, I believe, die. It was the principle of the story.
They try not to let you die in
or
training,
whatever
but yeah,
happened.
but
that was the gist of it, and it's so true. And that's what Frank and I are getting at: is just float. That's what you need to be doing. Is just float.
Yeah.
Like getting dropped in a crazy situation, and 14 miles away is a safety. Allow yourself to float, because you will, through the path of least resistance, using this tool, this instrument that we have.
If
you can achieve anything.
Well, it's amazing because a lot of times you have to paddle like crazy to get tired, to just finally give up, and then you realize you're floating. So I remember in training for boxing, I remember as a kid, like getting in there, and the only thing I heard from the corner of my dad screaming is relax. He wasn't telling me to throw the jab or the right. He was telling me to relax. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting punched. How the hell am I supposed to relax? Well, what you do is, in training, you learn to train to exhaustion, because when you're exhausted, the only thing you can rely on is your instinct. And then what happens is your instinct takes over, and you actually start becoming better at fighting. So if you could step in without the exhaustion and just click over to instinct, you would float every time. You would use the path of least resistance. Sometimes using most resistance teaches us about least resistance.
And what are you actually tiring out? The mind.
Yeah, that's it. Because I have faith in these principles, which allows me to float down the river. But if you don't have faith that the river could move you to the 14 miles in which you need
you're
it,
gonna be swallowed
you wouldn't
up.
do it. Yeah, you would just, I don't believe we'll do it. So if you believe it, something won't happen, you simply won't go to experience the thing.
Cut off the flow,
stop
the free
it.
flow of energy.
Yeah.
And then you're saying, why is this happening?
Yep.
Why is this happening to me? That's what we do going through life.
Well, what
we
it
cut
is
off
is
the flow, and we're saying, why?
you want to
why?
go there, but you believe you can't get there, and
Correct.
your beliefs will outweigh
every time.
every time. So the belief disallows you from going. So it doesn't mean you failed. You simply didn't go.
See, that's the thing. Like where you set the attention is ultimately where things will end up. And this is important for business owners out there. You're going to have these ups, these downs, these ebbs, these flows. You're going to
it's for everyone,
Yeah,
whether you're business or working
absolutely.
for a business.
Working for a business.
Because even the people who work for me on business, I teach them the same concept.
I look at this very, very closely, myself. And it's about keeping the attention on where you're trying to go, and moving that bar and making gains that you subconsciously know are possible, because that's what Frank's getting at with this resistance stuff, guys, is if we have a deep-seated belief that something cannot happen, that's what we must mend before we can achieve what we're looking for. What you reap, you will sow. This is the truth. And so working with this and having the knowing and the faith that this will work out is the answer. And so we get these little breadcrumbs, is kind of what Frank and I call them, of synchronicities. You're seeing certain situations work out for you as you begin to let go. But when it comes down to these big ticket items, or just mind, what we've set up in our mind to be very big, monumental things that mean a lot to us, it's just a higher level of attachment that we need to let go of and trust and float. And so when it comes to money, I got to provide for my family. I got to keep a roof over my head. I got to eat. This is just a different type of attachment, a different type of resistance, a different sensation that we're labeling it. You can let go of this too.
Yeah.
And know that you're going to continue to float. And this is what Frank and I are getting at. It's, the difference between the car keys and, a relative. We're putting different attachments on anything. There is no difference about the money you make in order to do this than being able to let go of whatever situation and watch it come to life.
Yeah, and I come to believe this. Again, this is my perspective onto it, that humanity as a whole here on this earth, there's a major shift going on, and that's kind of like what people are feeling. Like I talk to a lot of people. When I say a lot of people, relative to the amount of people I talk to, will come up to me and they'll have like, I wasn't feeling good. I went to the doctor, did all this blood work, they found nothing. So all of a sudden, people are suffering like fatigue and tiredness and all this stuff, and there's no indication from the way the doctor would look at it. If you give it long enough, they'll name it like they'll give it the name of like some type of name that doesn't have any real label to it. It's like autoimmune disease. What is autoimmune disease? It's unexplainable, so they put you in that category. All right, but what if it is part of the expansion that we're all going through, like the Earth, right? So there's global warming going on. Now, I'm not here to discuss what's causing it. Is it humans? Is it just the evolution of the planet and the sun coming into its binary star? It's closer, it's producing a lot more electromagnetic field, or if that big ball of plasma, it's hitting the Earth, so the Earth then has to create another electromagnetic field stronger to protect itself. This organism knows how to work. We don't have anything to do with it. But I'm not here to blame what's happening, but it's happening. So if that's happening, what do you think the body has to do? It's like the first week of training something. You're going to suffer the most pain. So anyone that goes into boot camp, it's the first week. It's dreadful. By the end, they got this. And they elevate. They're running further, but they're breathing easier. So we're going through something right now. The physical world is going through something. So why wouldn't you think you're going through it? And why would you think it was wrong? Again, if you believe it's wrong, and you will find a doctor that will give you a diagnosis, and then they'll make up a prognosis, even though they just found out about it today. Oh my God, we don't know what's going on, but you don't have much to live, And at some level, you're not. But you're going to develop or expand it to a whole nother living. So that this way you let go is another death. There's another way of looking at it. But why do we always go to the attachment or go to the thought that there's something wrong rather than this is part of expansion? We don't know enough to know that it isn't. But yet when I study history, we're still here. And we survived as humans a lot. When I look at physical, like I'll go back to as a young kid, like to Jack LaLanne, he was like this crazy athletic guy. The average kid coming out of high school can do what he did and even more. Like there are these ultra marathon runners that run 200 miles in the summer because they're allowing themselves to expand. So Jack LaLanne, he would still stand out to a degree, but not the way he did back in the 1950s, because we're continuously expanding. Where are we going to go from here? Now, getting into the field of not comparison, or keep it relative to where I am, If you keep your eye on the relevance to you individually and don't compare, you have expanded greatly in your life. Whether it's through knowledge or what not to do, understanding the principles because you didn't understand them first, sticking your finger in the socket to realize not to do that and stick the plug in so you can toast your toast. This is part of expansion. That resistance is what's carving out the mountains, so to speak, of your world. That's what helps us expand and get us stronger, make more tenacious. So it's not to avoid, it's to look at it differently, give a different perspective to it. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, you're tired. So what? Who cares? I'm coming down with something. If you believe you're coming down with someone will agree with you and put you down. But eventually you won't be on the couch forever. Oh, I feel great. I was sick for a week. Now I feel great. Can you minimize that sickness to a week? From a week to a day? But even if you do that, there's no great feat. But if you look at it, it was never a sickness. It was just part of expansion. You just keep going. But if you think it's a disease, you better honor that because your belief is going to get you in trouble if you don't. I can say I can lift 400 pounds and get under the bench and do it. And if my subconscious doesn't believe it, you bet it's going to crush my freaking chest and I'll die. So really, what do you believe? Well, what I believe is the amount of weight I put on the end of the bar and then lift it. Now, I'm like, okay, I could go up 5 pounds from here. I can then step out of my belief, let go of my belief, and step into the unknown. Because if I'm lifting 5 pounds heavier than I ever did before, that is unknown. Now when I do it, I'm like, holy shit, now I know I can do this. You just expanded. Now I have to move into another unknown. And expansion continues and continues. It's always continuing. But when you use the latter or the excuse of something's wrong here, that's what I call victim mentality. But when I say, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to head in and say this is supposed to be happening, that is moving into a completely different mindset. And that's the expansive mindset, the creative mindset. So what Mike was talking about earlier about having to do all these things, I have to do this, I have to do that. When you're in a have to do mindset, that's survival. But as we're shifting in this physical world, everything's changing, we're moving from survival into creative. Right now, you could be in creative and or survival. And what I mean is there are times when I slip into survival. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta survive. And I'm like, what am I surviving? I got more money than I ever had in my life. I probably couldn't spend it all, Mm-hmm. But yet I don't, it's going to be needed, but more money keeps coming. It doesn't stop, except for when Karen gets a hold of it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just kidding, Karen. Yeah, she's like, yeah, it's not true. But, yeah.
I really like where you're going with this because that is something that is from the deep depths of our conditioning. These feelings of, I must do this in order to achieve this. And I experience this all the time. And Frank and I were talking about this before, or we've talked about this before, but these mental hurdles, these mental hoops that we have ourselves jump through on a weekly basis. Okay, I got to do this with this employee. I got to do that. All right. These are all events that we're creating and narrating within the mind and allowing them to play out. And in all reality, we don't have to do any of them. And life would not crumble. No. But we feel it will. And we'll trudge through. And hold on to these hold on to this reality and call it so real and think the world's going to crumble around us if something doesn't happen a certain way, or if you take a day off or this or that. It's a grip on the mind. And what Frank and I are talking about is allowing yourself to loosen that grip.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you don't do those things, but you don't do them from a field of having to do it.
It's being aware.
But when I no longer have to do it, now I'm like, I want to do it. or try to step. I want to get to a place where I want to do this thing.
See,
right?
I still fall into where I don't want to do it, and I recognize myself, and I'm like, and then I draw the attention to it, and I say, hold on, I created that.
Yeah, and think about this, like, why don't you want to do it? And when I use that question, it's a question you ask yourself
when it feels like work. When I don't want to do it.
And then why does it feel like work? You keep asking a question.
Yep.
Because I say it's work. I'd rather be doing something else. What would you rather be doing? If you really rather be doing something, you'd be doing it. What it is, where the field of energy and what we call supreme and doing what we think we want to doing is in the field of attachment, but it's actually just a movement. It is never, ever, ever, ever what I'm doing. It's how I feel about what I'm doing that creates my success. Success isn't doing this. Success is feeling, and then the doing is a natural byproduct of my feeling. If I feel like shit, I'm going to do shit. Mm-hmm. That's why, like, it works either way. You get like these musicians or artists, right? They're miserable, and they put out miserable music, but yet it gets to number one because there's a lot of miserable people out there, right? Mm-hmm. It's like
it resonates.
Yeah, it resonates. So that's why it's like, oh my God, I'm resonating with that shit. I'm like, you's in trouble.
That's
like,
funny.
holy shit, But it's because they're expressing the emotion that they're in, and a lot of time they do it because it's cathartic. It gets rid of it. Because actually, Alanis Morissette, when she wrote,
she's awesome. Jagged Pill.
Jagged Pill, yeah.
Jagged Little Pill or whatever.
Yeah, the album was amazing. What it was amazing about it, she was angry in every song.
She's so badass.
She was angry in every song, but right now,
she's awesome.
But what's interesting is she's very. I'm going to use the word spiritual because people understand what I'm talking about. But she's very spiritual now and very into meditation, stuff like that. And I was listening to an interview with her, and she
found herself.
Yeah,
she sees what she is.
She looks at life differently because she never lost herself, but that's who she was. There was nothing wrong with being angry. It got her here. But what's funny is the interviewer was like saying, "So, how do you now get on stage and sing those songs with that girth?" And she laughed. She goes, "It's just a frequency. It's like an acting job. You could still go and get that. Doesn't mean it's going to be the life of me." But when she was writing the album, she was living that. Mm-hmm. She was living that,
character.
Yeah, she lived that character. That was, and I believe all those songs are from one person.
Really?
Like she dated
from one relationship.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It wasn't like Taylor Swift, why she wrote about every guy that she dated.
That's funny.
And then you realize, maybe it's something to do with you, not the guy, But I'm thinking, imagine that dude that's like, hey, it's like that album's like, you were the one who pissed her off. Like, oh shit, yeah,
dude, you're Jagged Little Pill.
You're
that guy.
You're that guy. You suck. You never get a date again in your life, right?
Whatever story you want to play.
Now I know what Alanis was talking about when she it's like, you gotta leave the planet.
That's funny.
But but that's just it. So we have the capacity to change our perspective into knowing that we don't know is gathering information. Every human being that has done enough study realize there's more that I don't know than I do know, so I know nothing. Because when I head into the unknown, that's the safest place to be, which opens up. But if I know everything, that's wrong. How is that wrong?
And scientifically, it's probably about half true.
Well, everything's half truth in the truth, but empirically, all truths are true.
Yep.
Because when I mean half truth, because to this truth that I claim is truth, there's equal and valid opposite truth to my truth. That's why it's half truth that somebody else can hold.
That's why Frank and I always say we're running around chasing our own tail, guys, when we say Democrat, Republican, these ideas.
Yeah, but people like Democrat and Republican are two sides of a coin. You need both.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is to say who's right is ridiculous.
Yeah.
All truths are true. And so to get wound up and get on your soapbox on either side and say this is the truth of this, you're living that truth.
And once you understand these concepts and principles we're talking about, you would never argue.
No.
You would just allow the expansion to happen. You would still debate. Because a debate is a discussion. So I have a concept and idea, and Mike has a concept and idea. So one could say this talk is a debate. But neither me and Mike are looking to win the debate. Because as we discuss the ideas and concepts that we learn, today this is a whole new podcast all of a sudden we both leave knowing more than we did prior to coming in, because we're both injecting our perception onto what this show called perspective shift is. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, I would have never said that if Mike didn't say this or bring this up. If I didn't bring it up, Mike would have never said that. That's the debate within it. So when I leave a debate, I know more.
Both sides should grow.
Well, they have to. They grow
Expand.
into something new. So it creates like a pyramid effect. So a debate has 2 points here and they come up to here. So there's a whole new understanding of the topic. And it never ends, though. It never ends. But if I have to win, I have to hold on to my thought and then just drown Mike out, or he drowns me out. And there's no, there is expansion, but it starts to crumble. Because once you're actually interfering, it starts to break down. And that's part of expansion too. It's just not the preferential way in which we want to see survival in this world. So me and Mike want to remain friends, so he always lets me win.
The idea of winning, losing, competition, all mind.
But that's
all self-created.
Yep. But even that's in the mind of the survival place. In the mind of the creative place, it's a whole new. That's collaboration. That's different expansion. In the mind of competition, it's like running through mud. In the mind of in moving into collaboration, it's like running across the water. Oh my God, or floating down the river is a different feel. And how we know this, we all survive we all live in both survival and creative mode, and we're moving more towards the creative mode because our survivals, I have to do this, I have to do that. I'm like, you realize your body knows what to do? Just like you don't have to worry about the pistons in your car. They'll take care of themselves. Just steer the car where you want to go and leave the rest up to the car. But you imagine you had to think about every component in the car before you get down. You would never be able to leave. I just need to know how to turn the steering wheel. Simple function in the car. And then where do I want to go? I don't have to worry about the pistons, the tire pressure, blah, 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 all that stuff. If that stuff starts to lower, I'll go and change it. But when you're in that car and everything is perfect, you don't need to concern yourself with that. There's no more surviving it. It's now creative. Where do you want to go with this creative state? What do you want to create? Where do you want to go? But fighting over land, I want to fight over land to create a life for my family. I'm like, one with death and carnage all around you? Like, really? Is there not enough land conceptually on this planet for everyone to live harmoniously? There is. And why do you want to own all land? So we don't have to go back to hunters and gatherers. But we can go back to the way they looked at life back then and still live in this modern way of technology. You can meld the two together. You don't need to go back to horse and buggy in order to have a slow, peaceful life. I could be on a subway in the middle of New York City or whatever and slow everything down like that. I don't need to be at the top of Mount Everest to do that. I really don't. I could do that in New York City, in Times Square. I could just slow everything down. I don't need to be on a quiet beach. That's the place we're talking about. That's when you own the world. You're the director, you're the producer, and you're the main character of your role. So choose it. Write the script. But even the person who writes the script, even the director, even the producer, still doesn't know until they watch the final edited version. They have no idea. They're still like, holy shit. Yeah, they might have more insight than the audience that doesn't know anything about the movie until they show up to watch it. But they see the intricacy that they didn't notice before. Just like, when me and Mike do the show, within a day or so, I listen to it because I want to take it in. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh, that was cool. That kind of happened. But we don't know as we're talking. Like, this isn't rehearsed. Like, we come up with the concept what to talk about off of a sentence. Mike might say something. I'm like, let's start with that and see where it goes. This is how life is.
Don't be afraid to dive in.
No, that's the brilliant. We're not. That's why we do it. Mm-hmm. And we never run out of stuff to talk about.
Oh no, I'm just saying.
Oh, next week,
don't be afraid to dive
next
in.
week we're going to do a vow of silence, by the way, so we're going to do a lot of sign language.
I actually do know how to say my name in sign language.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Really?
I can just do
What's
that. Oh, come on. I don't even know if that means anything.
It means bullshit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, look, see the bull hunt?
Oh.
I know that bullshit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't actually speak sign language. I just learned how to sign my name once.
All right, I don't, yeah. I know the middle finger thing.
Classic.
But actually, it's like, did the Italians invent sign language? You always talk with their hands. What are you doing? That guy has an Italian accent.
All over the place.
Yeah.
No, it's true though. We when we start to allow these principles to when we start to allow ourselves to experience these principles.
Yeah, experience is the key.
Yeah.
Conceptually, listen to this will generate enough energy to let you step off the
That's
cliff
where I was going with it. Is there's an intellectual understanding that comes with this.
Yeah.
And like that's great, but to experience it is another level.
It's a knowing. And again, just talked about like a lot of times in survival mode, and I just use this as a visual form, but having hope, doubt, hope, doubt. So you're looking at a wave as it comes smooth. But when you go from hope to doubt, hope to doubt, hope to doubt, it's a level playing field. It's flat. It's very boring. It's a flat line, if you will.
It's trudging through life. It's the mental exhaustion.
Yeah, it's a concept of no expansion or growth. Mm-hmm. But when I have,
it's the world happening to you.
But when I start with knowing faith, knowing faith, knowing faith.
And that's
there's an upward trajectory. Because I start from the place I start. I know when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, my bed's comfortable. Mm-hmm. Then I have to step out of my bed and have faith that the day is going to work out brilliantly. All right. And then by the end of the day, I lay in bed. I have a completely new knowing than I did when I woke up. But the faith creates the momentum that allows me to get higher from the place in which I was, like a skateboarder does on a ramp. Boom. So I know this platform, but then I have faith and I fully invest my energy into that faith, come to a completely different knowing, higher than the knowing I knew before. And that can only be in the unknown.
And that never ends.
Never ends. And that's perspective shift, baby.
Thank you guys for joining us this week. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe at the link below. And we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Peace out, brothers.
Thanks, guys.
And sisters.
Family.
Family.